Ryan, when you're looking at this Oregon State team, they do have. There's this contrast of like, oh, they're dead. They can't do this, they can't do that, but they're still finding a way to bring in some impact players. Offensively, obviously, the big name is Malik Murphy. Defensively, they bring Rajon Davis up. They're still able to facilitate and manufacture deals that matter and kind of plug and play some guys with experience and still some potential upside. Like when you look at this roster and you kind of look at where they're at, where do you kind of see this team in relation to where they are now and where they need to get to?
Yeah, I think that they are underrated on the whole. I think that Oregon State has invested at different positions. You talk about transfers like Rajon Davis and especially Malik Murphy, who they spent seven figures on reportedly to play quarterback. Like that matters, and the retention matters for Oregon State and guys returning from injury and the development and the culture overall that OSU seems to be building under Trent Bray. This is a team that, given the favorability of its schedule, I think has the potential to win, if everything falls their way this season, 9 or 10 games. And that would be a massive turnaround from last year, given the fact you lose 6 of your last 7 games down the stretch, and finish 5-7 on the year, and your program's in flux. But I think this is a year that, despite the chaos of college sports and despite how much the Beavers have been impacted by it specifically, that they could surprise some people, and that they could, because of the favorability of their schedule, go on a nice run to end the season.
All right, here's the big question, I think, for if you're a Beaver fan or if you're a Beaver adjacent. What the hell's going on with Darius Clemens?
Right now, we don't know. At this point, when we were at practice, we saw it happen. He injured his left leg. He went down non-contact and was in a lot of pain. He's been both on a scooter and on crutches with a boot on his left foot. At this point, we've been plumbing for answers from Trent Bray, and obviously not gotten any. He's typically a guy that lets the players make their announcement, as we saw last night with Micaiah Tongue, the linebacker, medically retiring after 4 injuries in 5 years, which is obviously terrible luck for that guy, somebody that would have factored in at inside linebacker. But Darius, right now, we don't know whether it's something that's long-term or something that'll be a few weeks before he's back, but it's not looking like he will be available for the Beavers' first game versus Cal based on the crumbs of information that we've gotten so far.
Ryan Clarke on loan from the Oregonian joins us to talk Oregon State football. I want to get into that coach's room real quick with Bray and especially kind of Gunderson in the offense. What kind of pressure is on that coaching staff this year? I don't want to say hot seat necessarily, but what kind of pressure is quarterback play last year was really brutal for the majority of the season. Obviously Murphy comes in. So talk to me a little bit about like what the heat index is in that coaching room.
Yeah, I think that there is definitely pressure to live up to the expectations of being a more balanced offense, of utilizing a guy like Murphy in such a way that, he lives up to his potential. You got to remember, this is a former 5-star guy, went to Texas, backed up Quinn Ewers, got his first opportunity at Duke to start, and had a good season last year, but Duke did choose to move on from Murphy. And you got to wonder as far as, whether he lives up to that hype this year and how that impacts the offense overall. But they're still going to be a run-first team. Obviously, Anthony Hankerson, carries the load for them, but Saladin Allah has really come on and gained some weight this fall and is bigger, stronger, faster than he has been. It's an offense that you see the potential of them being more balanced. You see the receivers that they have in Trent Walker and an upstart guy this fall that we've seen in Eddie Freehoff, a redshirt freshman out of Prineville. Really interesting story there. The potential is certainly there. The question is, can Murphy catch on fast enough to get in a good enough rhythm early in the season for the Beavers to get going and not fall in a deep hole, because those first 4 games are a real challenge.
Kind of a two-parter here for you. How big is bringing Kavanaugh back into the fold on the offensive line been for them, and considering they're returning all their starters, and even with that activity in the transfer portal bolstering their depth, most of their starting offensive unit across the board, with the exception of Murphy, it looks like it's going to be returners, and you've got guys in Caulfield, and you bring in Riley Williams at tight end, or you're just kind of reinforcing kind of what you are. You're kind of that identity. How much does having some of the old guard in Kavanaugh kind of coming back in, being the offensive line guru, kind of feed into maybe trying to tap into that vein of the Oregon State history?
Yeah, I mean that's a guy that fits the mold of an Oregon State coach and an Oregon State offensive line coach specifically, not just because he was here with Mike Riley for all those years and developed some of the best offensive lines in the country, but just his presence, his aura. You know, he might not use that word as a much more old school guy, but he has it, and it matters for what I think is a talented and deep Oregon State offensive line room. The question at this point for them is health. They've got a few guys who are starting caliber that had been dinged up coming out of the spring. They're much healthier now than they were at the start of camp, but not everybody is back. And a test for that depth will be these first couple of weeks against Cal and Fresno State. You know, how do they protect Malik Murphy while he's still figuring out the offense? But what I've seen, regardless of who's on the field during fall camp, is this O-line is getting a great push on the run and continuing to solidify that identity of Oregon State football. They're not going to just be a ground and pound team that if they can't run the ball, game's over this year. But certainly that's going to be central to their identity. And you mentioned Riley Williams at tight end. That's a guy who has a potential to, make good on his potential and add to the tight ends room with a bit of a local flair and being a former Central Catholic guy. Huge tight end, 6'5", 270, big, strong guy, great in the run game, and extremely deft feet for a dude his size. So excited to see what he does.
You mentioned it best. Those first 4 games are going to be kind of a rough stretch, but we should learn a lot about this team. Should ease up a little bit after that. Realistic expectations, Ryan? I mean, due to the schedule, you could maybe squeak out 8-9 games, or are we looking at maybe another 5-7? Like, could this team start off 1-3?
I certainly think a 1-3 is possible, and then after a 1-3, you could get to 9-3. That's how crazy the final stretch is compared to the opening, right? It's hard to beat a team twice. They'll have to play Washington State twice down the stretch, and the second one is in Pullman in late November, which is sure to just be lovely weather up there.
Guilty as charged. I am alumni. It is not fun up there at that time.
I look forward to getting a rental car when I'm trying to get around up there, but regardless of my own personal perils, the schedule overall, obviously, the start is brutal. You essentially have to win those first 2 games, right? Cal is a team that you feel like you're on the same level of as a program. Same with Fresno State, if not a bit above them. You got to win those 2 games because at Texas Tech and at Oregon in back-to-back weeks, a lot of folks have penciled that in pretty much as guaranteed L's for the Beavers. Nothing's guaranteed in college football, but those programs have just spent so much more money on their rosters, and especially Texas Tech. They've basically built this, pick your poison out of the transfer portal $50 million roster, which is insane. I do think that is a potential upset win for the Beavers if they can put it all together really well in the first 2 games, only because you've got all these pieces coming together for Texas Tech that you don't know if they fit together quite yet. But the backstretch, their final 7 games are all against teams below them in the FPI, ESPN's FPI, however reliable that might be. A couple of them are past the 100 mark too. Got Appalachian State, which is a long way to go for them on the road, but certainly not a program that you feel like you should compete closely with.
Lastly, future of the in-state rivalry, formerly known as the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, the things I keep hearing, and these are obviously unofficial statements and rumors on the street, is that there is a possibility of the game not being played next year and then being resumed in 2027. At this point, nothing is finalized. There is still the possibility, of the Beavers and Ducks working out their schedules. But you see schedules opening up for both of the teams in the future, just not quite next year, which is already currently set for both of them. You got the Beavers transitioning into the reformed Pac-12. There's a lot of complication at play here, and it takes both of the schools to play ball to really get the rivalry game solidified into the future.
All right, that's Ryan Clarke on loan from the Oregonian. Go check him out, read his pieces. There's a bunch of great stuff up right now. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll check back in during the season, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, my friend. That is Ryan Clarke from the Oregonian. He writes a lot of great stuff, follows the Beavs over there at the Oregonian. So definitely check him out, give him a follow. Yeah, easy follow. And I know Dirt and Sprague have him on from time to time, too. So check him out when he's over there.